Hey, Soilmates. Welcome to Men Metal Mayhem, the podcast where the brothers men take a deep dive into the discographies of our favorite metal bands. I'm your host, Brother Paul, joined as ever by my two brothers and co-hosts, Brother John
Yo, yo, yo.
and Brother Dave.
Ni hao ma.
Each season of the show, we are focusing on one band, and season one, Songs of the Damned, we are covering Soilwork. Today, we are discussing their triumphant 2010 album, The Panic Broadcast. Join us as we enter Dog of Pavlov. So this album was released July 2nd, 2010. Brother John, why don't you give us the top 40 chart highlights for that week and give us a snapshot of what you were up to in mid 2010?
With pleasure, Brother Paul. Well, number one that week was California Girls by Katy Perry featuring Snoop Dogg. I'll be
What a
honest, I don't
bop.
remember this one at all. I should probably
So
check it
good.
out. Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, it's got the Brother Paul stamp of approval, so that means it must be great. Number three was Airplanes by Bob, B.O.B., featuring Eminem and Haley Williams. Number four, Billionaire by Travis McCoy featuring Bruno Mars. And number six, a little jam I like to call Your Love Is My Drug by my girl Kesha. Love Kesha. Anyway,
Agree.
okay, cool. I'm glad we're of one accord there. What was I doing around July of 2010? Well, I think we talked about this on a previous episode, but you recently reminded me about Last FM, which I used to use all the time to track my plays. And I feel like I was listening to a lot of stuff on my car's CD player driving to and fro, and that didn't get logged because I did get this album right when it came out, and I feel like I spun it quite a bit in my car driving around. So, but it didn't show up a lot on my Last FM. But I did have a ton of The Streets, which, if you haven't listened to The Streets, you should check them out. I just revisited their first five albums, and oh man, good stuff. As far as metal goes, listening to a lot of Scar Symmetry in those days, and those guys are pretty good too. So we might have to dive into them at some point here on the pod. And the other one, I want to give a special shout out to my good old BFF Nate Dangle, who had put out an EP, basically like singer-songwriter kind of stuff, a boy and his guitar, but he's really good. And I don't think it's on Spotify or anything, but I listened to that a ton, and that was always one that I liked quite a bit. But in 2010, on the personal side, I was about, I would say, I guess a year, not even quite a year into my career as a bankruptcy attorney. So just working a lot, and in my off time, hanging out with friends, drinking, playing games, stuff like that. And one, speaking of drinking, in July of 2010 is when Sister Jessica got married, our oldest sister. And the night before, we got a drunk.
Yes, we did.
I
Oh,
don't have a strong recollection of where we went or what we were doing. Possibly just hanging out at my apartment in Neenah, Wisconsin, just chugging brewskis. And then it was the outdoor wedding. And I've got a picture, Paul. I don't think I sent it to you, but I should. I'll send it to you if you want to put it up on the socials. You certainly can. But it's just you laying out on the grass, looking like a dying corpse, bloating in the sun, wishing the pain would just leave you.
I I was I was literally too hungover to drink. I was so sick. I threw up on the way to the wedding. I think when we got to the wedding, I was in dire straits. It was not good. Um, and you did send me that picture, and I vividly remember that picture. Yeah,
But I think you probably crushed it in your duties as an usher. If I remember, I think we were all maybe ushers at that wedding. I don't think we had any major responsibilities, but just directing people to their seats or whatever. And or else
We
maybe Dave and
almost,
I just covered for you while you did nothing.
I think we almost screwed up by letting Sister Jessica out of like the back house that she was in too early. or something.
Ooh,
There
almost
was,
spoiled the first look. That's like
yeah, yeah,
rule
we
number
almost
one for
spoiled it.
ushering. You
Uh,
gotta
but I think
contain the
we pulled it
bride.
together.
Okay, good. Um, so, Dave, what were you doing in mid 2010 other than attending our sister's wedding and not being as hungover as Paul?
Yeah, I don't think I threw up on that. I think I had a pretty bad headache though. I was
Oh, am
not in the
I?
clear.
Do either of you remember, were we jamming out to this album, The Panic Broadcast, on the way to and from the wedding? I feel like we may have been because I would have just gotten it, I think. Because like the wedding was maybe a week after this came out. I feel like we were probably listening to this.
It's possible. This is an album that I know that I've heard, but I don't know where. It's not one that I owned, and I feel like music being easily available, it still wasn't super. Like everything wasn't available back in 2010. So we could have been, but I do not know. But what was I up to? Um, by then, I was living in Arizona. I moved to Arizona in 2009 uh, to go back to school to get a more employable degree uh, because I realized you can't do really anything with a bachelor's in psychology and a philosophy minor. Um, I learned a bunch of things, but they were not good for making money. So when I was going back to school, I started off in civil engineering, but then moved to bioengineering. I was probably I was probably still like making up undergrad math and science classes at this point. And then the other big change, I think by this point I had fully deconverted from Christianity. I was probably kind of in my anti-theist mode where I like believed that God doesn't exist rather than where I am now where I don't believe God exists. Which like if God exists, I haven't seen any evidence for it. So, that's where I was. Music wise, I was still kind of listening to a lot of the old stuff. I hadn't really started branching out a lot. Well, maybe I was. This is the period I was listening to a lot of M's. I realized as I went back through my what I had at the time. Moon Sorrow was still big. Matter Mortem was huge for me at this time and had been for a while. They're kind of like a metal infused with jazz. Very cool stuff. And then Mercenary was huge for me around this time. I know
Oh,
Brother John,
dude,
you got some
fucking love
Mercenary.
Mercenary.
Can
And
I
I
can,
think
can I just say you used to make like mods for Neverwinter Nights, and you put all the members of Mercenary as a band of like bandit mercenaries in the mod you made.
I did. I think that was also the one where I named like everybody after metal people and I made like the most annoying noble named Peter Dolving.
Oh,
Uh, but then, so I think I was also getting kind of into some weirder stuff around here because I remember being into Mr. Bungle around this time. Brother Paul, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them.
I am.
Uh,
I
this
when
is
I
the
did take
faith.
bass, my bass teacher was huge into Mr. Bungle and introduced me to them. So yeah.
And that's the Faith No More vocalist, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
His weird side project and great band simply because they hate the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like with a passion. They had a beef with them.
Nice.
Uh, and I remember reading one story of them at some point playing an entire set of Red Hot Chili Peppers songs poorly and then giving everybody a refund and going home. Just
I would pay money for that. Oh my God.
uh so that band is awesome. And then also kind of in the same vein of off-kilter music is Stolen Babies I was into around here. They're kind of like a gothy, carnival metal. They're weird, but they're very good. Uh, two albums. It's worth both of them are worth checking out. Um, that's that's kind of where I was. Learning to be on my own in Arizona. Brother Paul.
Yeah, well, I had just graduated that May from Calvin College. As a quick aside, just to kind of, it seems like you read my note almost. I like the idea of a liberal arts education. Um, but I think they do an absolutely terrible job of setting students up for success, in practical things like how to make a resume or even where to apply to jobs or just knowing what skills are transferable from the classroom to the workforce. Um,
100%.
yeah. So, I mean, like, I liked the education I got, but I was not set up for success, once I
Yeah.
graduated.
I
Uh,
I was panicking in like the couple months before graduating, and then afterwards I was like, I can get minimum wage jobs still. What even was this education for?
right.
Do you
Yeah.
think that was more maybe a factor of the Calvin College Student Services Department? Because I also recall being like, oh man, all the jobs out there suck. Well, I went for just a general business undergrad, which is pretty broadly applicable, but it was a lot of sales jobs. And I was like, I don't want to do sales. That sounds like it sucks. And so I just was like, well, I'll do something businessy with the law and I'll go to law school. So I just deferred my life for another 3 years by doing that. And that worked out okay for me. But still, you needed some more education after college. College degrees are the new high school degrees, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was part of it is that we're relatively old millennials and the world changed for us from our parents. And so like our parents told us, you need a bachelor's, you'll get a good job from it. And that was true for them and previous generations, and it just was not true for us.
Right.
And so everyone who came before us didn't know the world had changed.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I was aimless, adrift, and absolutely awash in alcohol. Just sort of drifting along. But I had started dating the lady who would become my wife, and we had started dating end of senior year. So I think it was that March or April. So that was a bright spot. Um, we've now been married for over 10 years now. Um, but musically, I was still very deep into post metal. And I was really into this band, Coma, Khoma. And it was a side project to some of the guys from Cult of Luna. And if you want Swedish dudes just wearing scarves, making real depressing kind of post metal influenced alt rock, like this is the band for you. Real just sad autumnal music. Um, and then the other band I would have been big into is melodic hardcore slash like punk band, a Wilhelm Scream, and I'm still really huge into them. They're like technically proficient as a punk band, and they're just a lot of fun. Um, yeah, and actually one of their new guitarists, he has a like 90s inspired death metal band that he plays in who they're fine. They're pretty good. So, yeah, that's kind of what I was doing. So, let's turn now to the year in metal, and it was another quieter year from our mainstays. We had Dark Tranquillity coming out with We Are the Void. And there is a interesting anecdote about who plays on that album, which I will get to later on in this episode. And then from Dimmu Borgir, we had Abra Hadabra. For final albums, we had Nevermore come out with their final album, The Obsidian Conspiracy, and they would break up officially the next year. Um, Two big bands that disbanded was ISIS, kind of the one of the forefathers of post metal, and then Red Harvest, who was a Norwegian industrial metal band. And I recall that Brother Dave you had an album or two by them,
I
and
did.
for a while, like I couldn't remember the name, and I would keep looking for the band. I was like, I know there's like, I think it's Red is in there, and then I finally hit upon them, and just like core memory activated of just us in our shared room listening to them because you knew I was big into industrial metal. I don't think they
Hmm.
were quite your jam. Um,
Yeah, they were one of those bands that I saw there was some potential there, and I was trying to maybe branch out into something new, but it just wasn't my thing.
wasn't your thing, but I still listen to them on occasion, so thank you. And then for debuts, I I have to mention this one. Ghost came out with Opus Eponymous. And let me just say, what a terrible band. Uh,
I know
Yeah,
you hate those
just
guys.
the
I,
worst.
if
I like that album quite a bit, actually. I haven't listened to it in a long time, but I
God, I'm gonna hit
remember I
mute
listened
on
to it a
you.
lot back then, and I would still listen to that one now, but I've not really listened to much of their other stuff.
Well, let me just say, if I wanted to listen to ABBA, I would listen to ABBA. If I wanted to listen to 70s pop tinged with kind of metal and rock influences, I'd listen to Cult of the Sun or Lordi. And if I wanted to listen to good music, I would not listen to Ghost.
I
I'm going to
think
listen to it again and report back.
Ghost is number two on my shit list, only beaten out by the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
But can we? I'd actually like to throw a good debut in here,
Okay.
um, which not 2010, but we haven't checked in on the metal scene since 2007. 2009, Flesh God Apocalypse came
Ooh.
out with Oracles,
Yep.
and unlike some other debuts that which need a little refinement, I mean they came out swinging. Oracles
Yeah.
is a pretty good album, and yeah,
And in
and they've
2010, they had Mafia, the EP. That was their second release.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
That's on my list here.
Oh,
So
nice.
they were coming in hot, back-to-back releases. Hey, Paul, I saw in 2010 Fear Factory came out with Mechanize. Were you at all still following or listening to Fear Factory at this point? Because I
Not
think you
at
had
that
said,
point.
did they break up and get back together and it just wasn't the same or something and you kind of fell off of them?
Yeah, I mean, they got back together. They came out. I mean, I remember listening to Archetype, and that was maybe, God, 2004, 2005. And then kind of after that, I listened to a couple of them, but then it was all just drama and lineup changes. And I was like, I'll just stick with the classics. And I kind of moved on to other stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
well, moving on
One other
to our,
one.
huh?
Can I point out a couple other
Well, I'm about to do mine.
oh, you had more stuff you wanted to say?
Yes.
Hey, proceed. Proceed.
And then it's you.
I'm sorry I cut you off.
Uh, from kind of our selected bands, it was another good year to be depressed. Because Agalok came out with Marrow of the Spirit. October Tide came out with a Thin Shell, and they're just like a good doom death band. And I
Mhm.
mentioned them up top. Coma came out with their third album, A Final Storm. Um, I was listening to that today, and one of the best songs on there starts out with the line just numb, I feel it spreading, and that's what
It's
you
good
want.
winter music.
Yeah. Another great post-metal album, Rosetta came out with A Determinism of Morality, and that album is an absolute triumph. Um, and then finally, Rotting Christ came out with I think it's pronounced Aolo. It's all in Greek, but that's a really good one. I think that was sort of my introduction to Rotting Christ. And now, Brother John, what do
Oh,
you got to add?
whew. Thanks. Like a caged dog trying to get out. Just got so much stuff to say. So we have mentioned Rammstein from time to time, and they were a classic favorite of ours. And I saw that in 2010 they were banned from Belarus by the Council for Morality due to their quote violence, masochism, homosexuality, and other abnormalities. So that gave me a little bit of a chuckle. But Rammstein, it's evergreen stuff. Also, Paul, were you much of a fan of Typo Negative?
Absolutely, I was.
Were you aware that in 2010, on April 14th, is when Peter Steele died at age 48?
Oh, R.I.P. I remember that happening, and I should have called that out. Yeah,
Yeah, I never really listened to Typo Negative, but I thought that that was just up your alley, and
I
so
saw
I'd
him live twice.
give him
And
the
I'm really glad
RIP
I
shout
did.
out.
I
Yeah.
saw them with Lordy, actually.
Oh, speaking of which. Well, and then a couple other albums. Let's see. Aluvite came out with Everything Remains as It Never Was. I thought that one was pretty good. Haven't listened in a while, but I recall that one being good. And then Noct Mystium Addicts Black Metal Part 2 was also in 2010. So, our good friends. Not exactly. Uh, was that around the time that he was like defrauding people and selling, like purporting to sell merch or
I
something, but
I
he just
think
stole
that was
people's money and got sent to jail or something like that?
probably around that time, and then I think it really jumped off a couple years later. But yeah, heroin addiction, it's a hell of a drug.
Yeah. Oh, and the last one I had here. So I believe on a prior episode we had mentioned Demon Hunter and how people gave you shit for going to see them, and also gave you shit for who
The
was
agony scene.
the agony scene? Who in then later on we're like, oh, the agony scene rules. You're like, what the fuck? You you said I sucked for going to see them, but so I don't know. Maybe we have to revisit Demon Hunter because in 2010, Bjorn Speed Strid provided guest vocals for their album. Let's see. Well, on the track "Collapsing" from their album "The World Is a Thorn." So, I did not check that out. Probably should have, but just keep that in your mental Rolodex to go take a listen to later.
Well, I think Bjorn will kind of be a guest on anybody's album that I mean, as long as you give him, a meal at a mid-price steakhouse, he'll do some guest vocals for you.
Hell yeah, and why not? Steak is a steak. But, I think he could only improve anything that he appears on,
That
is
is
my
true.
opinion.
Um, I mean, generally speaking, kind of at this point, the metal scene it's all over the place. I think there's newish bands like Five Finger Death Punch and Black Veil Brides and Periphery who are kind of making a name for themselves. But then there's also veteran acts like Iron Maiden had a huge album that year, and then the big four of thrash are still going strong. And I think this was the year that they were doing the big four concerts when it was Slayer, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Metallica all playing together, and that was the big draw. Um, and actually, there was sort of a mini thrash revival around this time with bands like Power Trip and Municipal Waste finding success. But let's move on to our boys in Soilwork. So, much as I was negative towards Sworn to a Great Divide last episode, it was their biggest commercial success at the time. But with success comes expectations, heavy touring and promotion. And one member took a look at all of that work and just said, yeah, I'm really too tired to do that. And with that, Olaf Frenning, the architect of Sworn to a Great Divide, left the band in 2008.
His
So,
old bones just couldn't handle it.
honestly, that
Would
was
he have
kind of his
been
reason.
would he have been like 40 years old at that point or something? I
Yeah, he
feel
was
like.
like in his early 40s.
So,
I feel
I mean,
that.
I guess that would be that like if I was out touring, yeah, screw that at my age. My
As
ripe
much
old age
shit
of
as we give
almost
him.
Yeah,
42. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I get
I
it.
don't want to go out of the house.
exactly.
So, who comes storming back in? Our old friend Peter Witchers, coming back to replace his uncle. And he takes one look at the guitarist Daniel Antonsen and says, "You're out."
Yeah,
And
done.
you're done. My uncle brought you in and I'm taking you out. And he is replaced by Scarve guitarist Sylvain, probably pronounced Cordray. So a nice reunion between him and Dirk Verburen, who was also in Scarve. And I mentioned Dark Tranquillity's We Are the Void. Their bassist, Michael Nicholson, left in 2008, and who's, freshly lurking around the unemployment line, spotting his chance, Daniel Atkinson. He's like, well, I'll play bass for you guys. So he
I
hopped
could play
over.
guitar. Bass is easy.
Yeah. So he played with them on that album and was with them for a couple of years and then left. And that was the only album he recorded with them. Um, but so moving back to Soilwork, Witchers' takeover is reflected in the songwriting credits because every single track is written by him, and there are four that Sylvain co-writes. And so this big album, production-wise, there's only one man they're gonna trust with this, and that man, Peter Witchers himself. So he
He's like,
flies.
Real
it's like,
hostile
I will
takeover.
not allow you to tarnish my legacy.
I mean,
God
well,
damn
I
it,
mean,
guys. You had one job.
yeah.
Because he was only listening to people like you, Paul, and your negative reviews. He didn't give a shit what I had to say. He's like, this sucks. I got to come back and show what this is all about.
He's very tactful about how he talks about Sworn to a Great Divide, but I think the subtext is they got it all wrong and let me show them how it should have been done. Why did I ever leave? So he flies everybody to North Carolina, which is where he lives, because he's like, I'm not going back to Sweden. You're coming to me. He plays them a bunch of bluegrass and forces them to record. So let's just see how his total creative control plays out on this album. Uh, let's go to the track by track. 10 standard tracks, just under 48 minutes, one bonus song. Let's get into it with track number one, Late for the Kill, Early for the Slaughter. And I think I'll kick us off because I was just so negative last time. What a fucking statement of a song. Peter Witchers kicks in the door and just says, I'm taking no prisoners. Like, this one's just a beast. Like, it's so aggressive and fun. And like the intro, it's like a nice homage to Thunderstruck by AC/DC. Like it sounds similar enough, like it's kind of building and then it just launches into it. And god damn, what an opener.
Oh, yeah. I was like, when I heard it, I was like, we back, baby. It definitely has that intensity that was just missing on Sworn to a Great Divide. And hitting the blast beats right out of the gate at about 19 seconds right after that intro. It's like, oh yeah, here we go. So yeah, a lot of guitar fiddling, you might say, underlying. Like even when they're not doing solos, they're like doodly dee, doodly doodly doo. So I mean, wow. If you want to cut the clip, it's like at 1 minute 19 seconds as they're kind of, I don't know, it's like kind of in the background, but they just have this cool guitar stuff going on. I didn't really notice so much of that with Frenning's old fingers on the prior album. He didn't have the speed of a younger man.
There's so much background noodling going on. I love how riffy this song and this entire album is. They're just like they'll do chords, they got their chugs, but they're like always throwing in little notes in between them to just keep things super interesting. And like you said, like Dirk Verbeuren just coming out the gate, blast beats, and I feel like he didn't show off on the last album, but
Yeah.
now he's just going nuts, and I
Yeah,
love it.
the drumming throughout this album is a lot more similar to Stabbing the Drama, but the production quality and the sound of the recorded drums is far superior. Because that was one gripe that I had about Stabbing the Drama.
Hmm.
It's like these drums sound kind of like shit the way that they were recorded, not like the playing. The playing was really awesome, but this one they knock it out of the park, I think, on like the mix and the just overall production. So, Witcher's doing it right.
Yeah, and
I
a
loved it.
big, big singable chorus. I feel like even the choruses on the previous album were sort of lacking, not nearly as memorable, but like I was late for the kill, but early for the slaughter is just so good. And then also the solos,
Oh
they
yeah.
have personality and they're back in a big way. Um,
Yeah.
I think you complained, Brother John, about stabbing the drama that there wasn't
Yeah, it was
much in the way
there
of
wasn't
solos.
much. There were some.
What they had there, I think were good. And then there were more on Sworn to a Great Divide, but I didn't really think they were particularly good. But here, they're back in a big way
Oh
and
yeah.
they're impressive.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
This song fucks.
Oh, well said.
Yeah. I mean, it, God, it's such a statement. It honestly seems like Peter Witchers is like walking in and says, "This is how you write a song. This right
Sl
here."
Slaps his giant dick down on the table. He's like, "Here it is, boys.
Yeah.
We're doing this my way."
Okay. I mean, that takes us to track number two, Two Lives Worth of Reckoning. Brother Dave.
The song slaps. I mean, we're starting strong, we're staying strong. Another big singable chorus with the I give it away and now I am so tired. Um, which when you read the lyrics, it's kind of awkward and you realize it doesn't actually fit the meter, but Strid pulls it off.
He's never cared
Uh,
about that.
no,
He
When
makes
it's
it
his
like,
work.
meter stop that man.
yeah. Um, what else?
Can I
I
just
don't
jump
think.
Oh,
in? I'm gonna jump
Oh,
in on the chorus bit because when he goes, I've been crawling to pick my side, like he goes up on, that's the kind of goofy vocal stuff that works. Like all the stuff he
yeah.
did on Sworn to a Great Divide didn't land, but like that one going up, it hit so good. I love it.
hmm Yeah, he shows off his vocal gymnastics a little bit.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
actually having control of his voice to do that kind of stuff, which is really good. And I think the standout part on this song is the solo, which is like 50 seconds long. It's solid 20% of the song is solos. And it's great. It's like halftime over some arpeggios. I love it when you solo on top of complicated arpeggios. Just sounds so good. Arpeggios, for those of you not in the know, is when you break down a chord into its individual notes and then you just noodle around on those notes. Um, and yeah, they got 50 seconds of solos, but it's interesting the entire time.
Yeah. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Uh, and yeah, the chorus on this one is just so catchy. It's got the fast drums behind the clean vocals. And then at 57 seconds, it cuts everything except there's this little guitar lead into the chorus. And that I thought that was a nice flourish right at that part. And then another part that I thought was really awesome from about 2 minutes and 3 seconds to 2 minutes, 10 seconds. There's kind of this groovy little guitar solo, but the vocals are just like a sustain for like this whole 7 seconds, like right at the end. I don't know. Yeah, there's just so much range. I mean, I guess the vocals always have a lot of range, and but I don't know. I just noticed it a lot more on this album, I think, even than anything they'd done before. He's doing a lot of good stuff with the with his voice.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I do just want to add before moving on is there's more talk about seed in this one. So,
Oh, read
uh,
us those lyrics if you have
oh
them.
boy,
What
it's
did he
just the
say?
way I need to plant that seed. won't settle for nothing, won't settle with greed. So, old man Farmer Strid's back planting his seed.
Uh, awesome. I'd like to visit his estate and see what he's grown out there.
So, let's move on to track number three, The Thrill. Brother John.
Well, this one, so they slow it down a little more mid-tempo, but not slow by any means. And I thought this one had some fun little drum parts where they kind of hit the offbeat with the snare, kind of like a fun syncopation that they do. So, and it shows up a few times throughout, like at 58 seconds, a minute 40, and 3:55 are a couple of timestamps that I noted where, he's playing the beat and then he just kind of does a fun little thing and hits the snare a little half beat later than what you kind of expect, which that just adds a little flourish. And this wasn't like, I mean, it's a little flashy, but it's not in your face. So you maybe wouldn't even notice it if you're not really listening to the drums. But he's always doing something fun in the background, even on sort of a basic part. He never just sits still and
Mhm.
plays something too straight. Also, fun guitar riffs throughout. But again, thought it was kind of more subtle. So I don't know. It's like a really good song. I liked it a lot, but nothing too like in your face or flashy about it. Just like solid and a lot of fun little parts to it.
Yeah, it's a fun, it's just a groove, and it works well, even though it is a little slower. I mean, after the ferocity of the first two songs, I mean, you kind of got to slow it down. You can't just keep going up. I do think I recall this one has some real stanky pinch harmonics that are
It's
getting
got a
thrown in there.
big one at
Yeah,
49 seconds.
yeah,
And then I think it recurs at that same part on that
yep,
riff each time.
yeah,
Big and stanky. The other thing on guitars that I noticed is in the main riff that repeats throughout the song, um, he just does this little trill hammer-on thing that gives a lot of flavor to the riff. It would be a good riff if he just hit the note and that was that, but then he adds this trill on top of it that just adds a little extra. Um,
And Dave,
and
for the
that's
idiots
the
amongst us, what is a trill?
It's where you just like quickly change notes. It's like a diddle
Okay.
diddle. Yeah. So he hammers onto the next note up and then lifts his finger off again. So he goes up and down. Yeah, and that kind of stuff, it's all over the place in this album. This album is rad, but at the same time, he's not doing the same stuff over and over. Um, the solo here, it's quick and sweet, still good. And this, I think, at 147 is the first time on this album that I noticed there being a digital sound. I think they do like a drop or something and have like a build up with some sort of digital sound, which makes me wonder, Sven is still in the band at this point, right?
yeah. You wouldn't know it, but
In
Right. The
theory.
the synths were very sneaky on this one. There wasn't anything too in your face.
yeah, I
They're
mean,
incredibly sneaky. I
they were
remember
Jason Newsted sneaky.
yeah.
I wonder if Witchers came back and was just like, "Hey, remember how you wrote all of figure number five and I didn't? Well, guess what? You're out. Sit this one out."
We've turned Peter Witchers into just a domineering
A
asshole.
fucking monster, but I'm sure he's a nice guy. Want to just say, like, he rejoined in 2008, and I saw them in Hungary then, and when I saw them, he must have just been back in the band for just like a couple of weeks. So I couldn't have told you that he was actually gone. Yeah, I think this song is the one in interviews where it's like, yeah, he was inspired by like blues and bluegrass riffs. And he said that he threw some of those in this one. So if it's kind of noodly, that's what you got to thank for it. And now let's move on to track number four, Deliverance is Mine. Brother Dave.
This song, another banger. And I think it was good that the thrill dropped down in its energy so that the big energy of this one can really shine. I think they've done a good job composing the entire album so that there's a good up and down flow to it. So everything kind of has its place. Um, the intro riff, it's great with kind of noodly guitars behind the main chugs, and then the whole thing comes together and the noodling becomes part of the main riff. Uh, and there are so many arpeggios on this album. It is ridiculous. So much, like almost every riff, there's some arpeggiating going on. Mr. Witchers was really outdoing himself. My favorite part of this song, musically, is the transition. I think it's going to the chorus is he, the chorus is not actually super memorable lyrically, vocally to me, but musically they switch from this fast 8/8 thing that they're doing to like a 6/8 riff, and you're kind of like, what the hell is going on here rhythmically? Um, and it's really awesome. Uh, it switches both to 6/8, and then there's only 3 bars of it, so it throws you off again because things normally come in groups of two. Uh, and I loved it. I loved it a lot. There's sweeps in the solo that comes in around the 2:30 mark. And one last thing that I liked is I love when they throw in kind of random guitar sounds or whatever that aren't necessarily tonal. There's like a really dissonant, quick descending riff at like the 2:14 mark that I enjoyed a lot. What about you boys? You, brother Paul.
Um, yeah, watching you talk about that song was a delight. You are beaming and like you I feel bad saying this, but I mean, it's a
But you hate
service.
it.
No, I don't. It's a serviceable song, but I don't love it. I think it's good. It's one of those Soilwork songs where I'm like, this is a good Soilwork song. I don't love it.
I
Um,
put this one firmly in my banger category.
okay. I mean, I don't. l- The part where he goes, "Now, where do we go?" It doesn't
That's the
quite.
part that switches to 6/8, which is
Yeah.
it throws off the flow, but I think in a good way.
Yes, I know. I've written it doesn't quite fit. Like I see what it's doing, and I go back and forth on that. There'll be times where I'm like, it doesn't fit at all, and other times I'm like, yeah, it does. It does work. Uh, the solo at 250, I recall it starts really fucking good, and then kind of tapers off in terms of what I like. But it starts out really strong. Um, so, Brother John, why don't you give us some thoughts and then we're gonna have to open
Yeah,
up one of our segments.
right. I guess I was a little more in Paul's camp on that. My notes weren't too extensive. I just said this one is pretty good. Throws in some more blast beats. Always like to hear that peppered in. The solo was definitely there, but the chorus of "Deliverance is mine" didn't really captivate me. So, I didn't dislike it. I didn't love it, but again, hearing Dave just light up about this song, it makes me think, wow, I must have missed all this stuff with the cool guitars that are going on because I didn't have
I
that in my notes.
I will agree with you about the chorus, definitely, because now that you mentioned Deliverance is Mine is the chorus, I'm like, oh yeah, it is. And it's not the most memorable lyrical part. The now where do we go? Where do we go is the most memorable lyrical part. So they probably fucked up the chorus.
Yeah, it could be. But like Paul said, I think we better open up our segment Video Killed the Melodeath Star and talk about the music video on this one.
Well, let
Um,
me just say, This song is serviceable, but God, I didn't know that we needed this video
Yeah,
because
this
it is a follow-up to the CGI video for Light the Torch. It is a it picks up 7 years after that video, which go back and listen to that episode and watch that video because
but
boy,
but the story picks up right where
yeah,
the other video
yep.
finishes. So you see the continuation of these little CGI little sack guys running away, little
I call
gunny
them my
sack
little
men,
bucket-headed boys.
the buckethead gunny sack guys.
Yeah, who
But
have a,
yeah, this is the sequel no one asked for, but everyone, it turns out, needed. So do yourself a favor and go check out both of the videos back to back so you get the full story.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Would
would
you
like to
mind
add
if
that
I explain
just
what happens in this?
before that, I do want to set the scene with this CG. Despite 7 years passing in real life, it's like no time has passed with these graphics.
I think they slightly improved it, but it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Or maybe they didn't necessarily improve it, but they just elaborated a little bit on what was going on.
They do try to
So,
do one uh one fancy thing with the graphics, and then we'll go into the story. That at the 2:12 mark, they show a bead of sweat dripping down the mad scientist's face, and I feel like that
oh,
was probably technically really hard to
Oh
do
my
at the
God. You
time.
know, whoever made that or like thought up that was like, their
This is
minds
gonna
are
look
gonna be
so cool.
blown.
well, I didn't notice that part. So, sorry, CGI guy, missed your little flair. But can I just say, this, for those who don't recall, this is like the evil scientist, bad guy chasing these little mechanical things. But the bad guy, he's basically a hybrid of the Borg Queen from Star Trek First Contact and the Spider Demon from Doom. Plus, he has an Edward Scissorhand, and he's like this fat-faced larva body suspended off the ground by a mechanical helmet being carried around by this spider contraption. And he's there commanding his biomechanically modified henchmen with metal legs in an executioner's mask to go down into the well and retrieve these little buckethead gunny sack creatures that escaped in the last video, if you recall. At the end, the one guy jumped down and you think he's safe. Okay, he escaped these bad guys. So the henchman jumps into the well to go chase him down. And while he's doing that, the evil scientist scampers back to his lab and he's admiring his collection of brains in jars. And he retrieves his briefcase, which, spoiler alert, but it's later revealed it's full of heads of these little sack creatures, more robot heads. So, anyways, the henchman does his bidding. He captures these guys, he brings them back for further experimentation. But then he's having like a Darth Vader moment and he's like, oh, is this like what this guy's doing? Is it wrong? What should I do? And then just before the big bad guy is about to swipe these dudes and eviscerate him, just like Vader tossing Emperor Palpatine into the core of the Death Star, the executioner stops his hand from hacking the little guys and he grabs the Edward Scissorhand and like holds it back. And then the executioner eviscerates him with a spinning blade arm, but it's off camera, so it's not too gory. But you see the larva body and the head, it's detached from the mechanical spider body. And then the big reveal at the end, the executioner takes off his mask and he reveals he has the same bucket head as the little sack people.
What a fucking
Deliverance.
reveal.
Deliverance was truly all of theirs. 10 out of 10. This video was phenomenal.
And spoiler alert, kind of the last shot is the mad scientist's eye popping open to show that he's not dead. So here we are, 14 years later. We need part three to this video.
Well, yeah, you're right. I don't see why that isn't happening yet.
Yeah. So
We should start a letter writing campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
change.org.
Give us part three.
Oh my God. I
Uh,
whoever was like, you know that video for Light the Torch that was like a fun, weird CGI video? Let's do a sequel to that. Props. Just nothing but mad props. This is just like fun. I don't know. It's great.
yeah, it's just kind of
Way
out
it's
of nowhere too, but
Yeah.
it
Oh yeah.
works. It works
Way
great.
better than getting jostled around inside the tube amp.
Oh
I like
God.
that video too, but that that video is pretty stupid. These ones are just fun.
Most music videos are stupid, but you got to do something to make them stand out.
I I love almost any music video that does not even show the band.
Yeah,
Like more people should do that. You go to a show to see the band. Like do something fun with your videos.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So that was Video Killed the Melodeath Star. So let's move on to track number 5, Night Comes Clean. And for me, we're back in it with another groovin' bop. And bonus, a lot of angel talk in this one. So I wonder what Mr. Strid is going through.
Is it positive or negative angel talk, would you say?
Oh my God. I couldn't tell you right offhand.
Well,
Of
he
course.
hasn't, I mean, maybe he's searching. He hasn't talked
Yes,
about diabolical things in a while, so
that is
maybe
true.
he's found our Lord and Savior.
Well, he's talking about changes. Brother Dave, what are your thoughts on this one?
It's a bop. Uh, Guitar wise, it's mostly chugs and some big held chords. There's not nearly as much noodling going on here as in the other ones, but that's kind of to be expected in a mid-paced song, which is what this is. Uh, and 228 is the first time that I noticed synths, and they are very sneaky. They're just like some real quiet chords behind, I think it's the verse that's going on at that part. I feel like they're giving Sven the Carlos treatment.
Gonna say, do you think Sven like had to sneak in to record his stuff, or like Winters is asleep and he's sneaking into the control room, be like, "Ah, I just gotta boost myself just a little bit so you could hear me."
Probably. I imagine he and Carlos are good friends, and Carlos has already been through it. They get together and drink, and Sven cries himself to sleep. Carlos has to be there, like, I've been there, buddy. I know. You'll get through this. Um, what else is good?
Yeah, it's just how he shows love. It's okay.
Yeah. Um, there's cool tapping in the solo, followed by a second solo. They do a lot of the dual solos on this album, um, which I think is nice. It gives Mr. Coudray a chance to show off his chops, and he's got them for sure. He seems like a good addition to the band at this point, but very overshadowed by Pete Witchers. Um, it's a good song, kind of a goofy chorus with the changes. Uh,
Yeah. I didn't love that part so much, but overall, agreed. Pretty good song.
it is a bit overlong for being a mid-paced song. By
Yep.
the end, I'm ready for it to be done,
Yeah,
but it's still a bop.
yeah.
Yeah. One other thing I noticed in the vocals, there's parts at which there's almost like a second vocal track where it's kind of like spoken word recording of the same vocal line. So just providing sort
Mm.
of layers of vocals to
Layers
fill
of
out the
lies.
Layers
songs.
of lies.
So I don't know. I thought that was a nice production element on this one anyway.
That's our new segment. Whatever somebody calls out when there's like multiple vocal tracks, that will be called our layers of lies.
Layers of anything. This is a way more layered album
Yes.
than Sworn to a Great Divide.
And
Yeah.
also the guitar tone is
So much
far
better.
superior.
Not
I
an
did
offense to my
do
ears.
did do like a side by side listen where I'd listen to like track one of each album, then track two, so I could hear them. And every time I'm like, man, that guitar tone just kind of sucks on Sworn to a Great Divide. And like, if you're only listening to that album, I guess for me, anyways, I didn't really, I kind of notice it, but it's like, whatever. I'm used to it now. But then when you keep going back and forth, it's like, oh man, they
Yeah.
gotta fix
I
that.
mean, Frenning was in charge. It was probably his tinnitus made it
Yeah.
so that he couldn't hear good sounds anymore.
Oh, with this kind of talk, we will never get a member of the band on.
Nope.
No.
Too
It's all
too
it's
critical.
all
Too
in
many
good
personal
fun.
attacks.
Yeah.
I gotta knock off the ad hominem attacks.
Oh man. So let's move on to track number 6, King of the Threshold. And oof, our good friend the Rat-a-tat-tat is back. But it's a decent song. It doesn't kill it for me. One at this point in the album, I've noticed that the choruses just they're not as sing-along as on past albums. Like you think a Stab in the Drama, especially Natural Born and Figure Number Five, they just have these big choruses that you can sing along to. And so far, that's not quite the case on this. And I'm really starting to notice it. Um, but the ending to this song, they got like kind of the machine gun drums just going. That's pretty cool.
And screaming,
Yeah.
fuck it all. That
Yep.
part? Yeah, that part's
Sums it
great.
up. Brother John, what are your thoughts on this one?
Honestly, I didn't really love this one. The vocals definitely go hard, but there's not really any clean vocals. It's overall just less melodic than a lot of the other stuff, but purposely so. They're just, it's supposed to be sort of a blisterer, I guess you might say.
Hmm.
But that's just not what I wanted when I was listening to this. So I don't know. I was I was sort of lackluster on this one.
I think I sounds like I liked it a little more than you, but I am kind of in that same place. Like it's a very fast pace, which is nice. When you're at that pace, it does seem like there's only a handful of drum patterns that you can like do, and the rat
Yeah.
tat tat is one of them. Um, so it can get a little boring, but Dirk does throw in just so many fills that I find that that pattern does not annoy me when he's
Yeah,
playing
and
it.
I mean, I will
Oh,
say
I
Um,
that.
didn't even
Yeah,
notice it as being that.
it's not as offensive to me as on past albums, and I think that's a credit to Dirk. Like he must be doing adding some flair in there somewhere so that it's not just tot 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 or just tot 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 with also
yeah.
the tot 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 on the ride cymbal. Good God.
Uh, and then just technique wise, there's at 205 they do that thing where they kind of drop out a lot of the music and do kind of shouty stuff over it, like he's shouting an inspirational speech or something, which usually comes off as kind of cheesy, but he does it pretty well here.
Yeah.
And now I wonder what's become of me. Is that the truth that was found?
Pretty well. As maybe as well as it can be done. I don't know if I've ever heard it done particularly like really
It's
sold it.
fine.
Uh, Solos are good. We get some more sneaky synths, but um, yeah, this song, it's a bop, but not one that you really
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, it's fine. Didn't have the dynamic range of some of the other songs, I feel like. It was more like focused in on getting in, being hard, and getting out.
Yeah, it's probably fun to play.
Well, let's move on to this track, number 7, Let This River Flow. And is this the first ballad they've ever done? I mean, Departure Plan maybe, but brother,
Well, Soilworker's Song of the Damned is a ballad, wouldn't you say?
not in the vein of this. Brother Dave, talk to us about Let This River Flow.
I think it's not necessarily the first ballad, but I think it might be their first song in a major key,
That
which might be what
where
you're
it
picking
sounds
up on it.
hopeful.
I it
Hmm,
Yeah, it's hopeful and it's got a big like
Yes.
anthemic
Yeah,
feel.
maybe ballad was the wrong word,
that's it.
but it sounds different noticeably than their other songs.
Yes, it is noticeably different than their other songs. And for me, I think this song fucks.
Oh, yeah.
Um it's real good with the acoustic intro, and just the kind of a little bit of solo noodling over the top of it. And then when the heaviness hits 30 seconds in, it hits so hard. And even with the single snare to lead it in, sometimes the simple techniques are the best. And I really like the heaviness. They keep it up throughout the whole song. It's just got really good energy throughout. Everything is so big in this song and just tons of arpeggios all over the place. Brother John, what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I mean you pretty much hit on it all. But yeah, this one it slows it down a little bit from the last song, give us something more melodic. Certainly doesn't drag or get boring, and then they really do kind of as it goes on picks up the intensity. I love this one. It's really got it all. The soaring vocals, it's got catchy hooks, a lot of emotion. Um, yeah, at the bridge into the chorus, really like what the guitars are doing. It's at about 116 at the part where he's singing "Let Me Be the One," and it goes into the chorus from there. That there's just some cool guitar stuff going on. I love it. I got nothing bad to say about this song. Like Dave said, this one
Yeah,
fucks.
you said they have it all, but actually, I think this song does not have a solo.
Oh
Oh,
my God. Well, maybe everything else was so good. I just kind of missed
Yeah,
that was that
noodling
was
so
absent.
much you don't notice
They
or
it's
else,
not a solo.
oh my
yeah, or
God.
else I
Yeah,
got
you
like distracted at the same point every single time I listened to this song and forgot to write it down. But I think
Yeah.
there's no solo.
There is talk of a harvest. So, he's planted seeds earlier in the album and now he's harvesting them. So, again, Farmer's
Hmm.
Grid. Get the
I mean,
AI generated.
it's called soil work for a reason.
it was right there in front of us the
Oh
whole time.
boy. Um, Brother Dave, is there a segment that you'd like to open up on this one?
I mean, as much as this song fucks musically, it is still, I think, kind of the same beautiful disaster of lyrics as so many of their other great songs. And I would like to point out some of the lyrical tactics and vocal gymnastics
Lyrical tactics, vocal gymnastics.
that Bjorn Speedstrid gets into here.
Okay, take us away.
Um, I mean, I think we're gonna start with our friends over at songmeanings.com. This comment is by Andrew W. PG. And he says from 9 years ago, which is
Wait, is he a relative of Andrew WK?
Yes.
I think so. He might be the more child-friendly alternative with the PG.
Still here to party though.
Absolutely.
Pizza party.
So what Andrew says is, this is a very profound song indeed. We've heard this before. Uh, to me, it's far more than it seems as an individual. It is like a statement from a messianic perspective and a fallen position relating to a schism. I relate fully to this as well, as this is also how I feel. I'd like, so we're halfway through this comment, and I'd like
All
to
right.
ask you two boys,
So
do you have any idea what the fuck
is
Andrew
there
just said?
hold on, is there a website called commentsmeanings.net that we could like feed this comment into and decipher what the
Oh,
fuck he's
Yeah, we
talking
got an
about?
inception this
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I fully relate to this. Okay, I think he sees Bjorn Speed as the
He's like, I
Messiah.
am the Messiah.
And he relates to that.
But
So,
but himself as
yeah.
well, apparently. I don't know.
Yeah, it's how I feel. Uh, so Andrew WPG continues. Currently, we live in a world full of scarcity, driven by a greed machine. It is disease. Letting a river flow is allowing a prosperity to manifest that is free from the greed and allows everyone to feel the magic that this brings for all. No one needs to suffer.
Wait a minute. Was Andrew WPG the CEO assassin in New York?
I was gonna make that joke.
Oh,
Oh no.
let's all
Sorry,
just
I
make
stole your
variations of it.
thunder. Oh boy.
Uh,
Sounds like he could be.
Oh my God.
uh,
That's an like I say it every time. Every song meanings.com comment. It's a cry for help or a manifesto. And this one seems to be a bit of both. Uh,
Yeah.
so
yeah, possibly written by a schizophrenic. Like I've read it many times and I do not see how the first half of this comment relates to the second half.
no, it's like those people who you go to a talk and they clearly just want to like shoehorn in their little statement. So he was just
Yeah. So he's claiming that this song has an anti-capitalist message, I think is kind of what I get from the end of it. Is overthrowing the greed machine. Which if you take certain bits of this song out of context, I could totally see that being the case. Um, where is this? Let me be the one who will rise and return from sleep. Give me the strength to run, become one with the remedy. The remedy for capitalism is taking direct action against healthcare CEOs.
Apparently so.
oh.
Jeez.
um, but so you look at the chorus, which is huge and singy, and it's what people are going to actually remember from this song, which is no regrets, no compromise, story will be told, won't reject the cure this time, let the river flow. That gets repeated often, and you'd think that it's the the crux of the lyrics of the song. Um, it says to me, it feels like it's about creativity and like letting out the song that's inside of him and using that for like personal healing or something, which would kind of make sense in the context, the broader context of Soilwork. But then I look at all the verses and I'm like, what the hell is this about? I cannot make any sense of it. Did you boys take a look and
I
have
well, I
any insights here?
I did take a quick look, maybe not as deep of a dive as I've done on some of the other ones, but like initially I thought the lyrics were kind of giving me like recovery from addiction kind of vibes. And I feel like a lot of Soilwork songs kind of have that theme or could be read to have that theme. And it kind of makes me wonder if Bjorn Speed Strid has ever struggled with addiction or recovery. Nothing that I could find online really pointed at that. So I don't know. Maybe it's just not biographical if it's even supposed to be about that, but or maybe he has friends who have been through that. It's about them. But then I thought too, this could potentially also be an anthem about basically saving the band Soilwork from continuing down the path that so many people seem to hate with that they were taking on the last album, Sworn to a Great Divide. I will rise again, won't reject the cure this time. The cure obviously being Peter Witcher's songwriting. Not going to reject that. He's coming back to save everyone.
The song is an
yeah.
apology. It's an
Yeah, it's
apology
like
to Peter Witchers. I'm sorry.
It says, I was there almost watching me become one with the fall. It's like he almost saw the band go to hell in a handbasket, but then Witchers swooped back in and saved the day. And it's like no regrets, no compromise. Story will be told. Won't reject the cure this time. Let the river of Witcher's guitar mastery flow. So that could be an alternate meaning that I was thinking
I
about.
mean it basically seems to be a song about like not being crippled by the past and like kind of just letting go of things and finding some kind of serenity, you know. So yeah, themes of
So it is about Soilwork's journey from the last album
yeah, I
to
mean,
the
was
current
I not
direction
clear
on
when I
this
said
album.
that? That they're letting go of Ola
So you
Frening.
agree 100%.
So, Paul, just to be clear, you should go post that on
Well, I'm gonna go to
songmeanings.com. In the
commentsmeeting.com.
Yeah.
make sure to post it as clearly in the most unhinged way as possible.
Um, So that is Lyrical Tactics Vocal Gymnastics. There is a video for this song. So let's open up Video Killed the Mellow Death Star. And then just quickly close that because it's just live shots. So I got nothing to say about that. Yeah.
Well, my only comment was I appreciated that they at least used concert shots of them playing this song. So it mostly looks like they're actually playing the song. Whereas on 20 More Miles, it was just random shots of them on tour. And it's like, okay, this is just almost kind of
Yeah.
annoying to watch them playing other songs while the song you're listening to is playing that. So I appreciated this one a little bit more. And there was just a quick, like 1 or 2 second shot of their set list. And it looked like only one song on the set list came from their first two albums, and that was The Chain Heart Machine. So they were not really playing much of their older stuff, which probably is kind of
Yeah.
common as you have so many albums, you're going to play more of your recent
Yeah.
stuff. But just wanted to point that
Yeah.
out.
I always respect when a band tries to mix it up and kind of do sections of eras instead of just focusing on like the highlights or the most recent stuff. So, um, yeah. All right. So let's move on to track number 8, Epitome. And what an absolute mess. A snoozer. I have nothing to say about this dull and uninspired mess of a song. So take it away, boys.
Well, I said I don't love this one, but I don't dislike it. So there's maybe another one that I felt kind of lackluster on too, but this one is another one that I was pretty lackluster. Um, but from 2 minutes 44 seconds, starting there, they go from the end of the chorus into a long instrumental interlude that kind of slaps, and then it comes back into the chorus again. So I thought that whole part was cool. And then it goes pretty hard at the end, but overall, yeah, a little bit middling in my opinion on this one as a whole. Had some cool parts, but as a complete package, yeah, take it or leave it.
Yeah, I'm not going to call it a snoozer. It is a weak bop to me. But it's still, I'm positive on this, if only mildly so.
I'm bullish on
Um,
Epitome.
it- uh, as John mentioned, it's a slow burn up until like 2:45, and
Yeah,
the
and I guess
end.
that is pretty far into the song for it to start getting good. It's like
Yeah,
how long do we have to listen to this before something cool happens? Poking it with a stick. Do
uh,
something.
there is cool stuff going on at the beginning, but it's not really soil worky stuff. I think Witchers is trying out some new harmonic stuff. It's got some fun harmonics and got like a diminished thing going on. But it's kind of a miss. It's done well, but just doesn't really fit, I think. But the outro slaps hard enough that it saves the song from being a real snoozer for me.
Yeah,
But
agreed.
definitely the weakest song on this album.
Okay. So moving on to track number 9, The Akuma Afterglow. Brother Dave, give us your thoughts.
I like this one. It's a it's got a fun chorus. Just kind of a fun singy, kind of simple, and then it came blood rushing straight through the eyes of pain. Starts out with some Ebo harmonics as
Mm.
our good friend the Ebo is coming back in. They don't use it very often.
It's because it's getting worn
Um,
out and they just stole the one from Opeth. So
Yep.
I feel
Uh,
like this thing's on its last battery.
they don't know how to change the little button batteries that go in them.
Yeah, those lithium ion batteries are expensive. You can't just be buying those all the time. But I would say
They're
like most of the songs that feature the EBO are ones that I like quite a lot. So I'd have to maybe go back and do a, you know, what do you call that? Some assessment to determine if that's actually true. But every time the EBO shows up, I'm pretty sure that song's a bop.
hmm uh vocally, I like the part at 56 seconds. I think it's kind of silly. He says, "My head up," and he says "up" like with a whole bunch of juice on it. Uh, and the more I listened to it, the more I laughed because you kind of like go past it as you're just on a casual listen, but then once you hear it, it's hard to unhear it.
I've been turning my head off. I made ways to forgive. I made ways to forget.
Um, and then the chorus, the guitar work on the chorus reminds me a lot of the guitar work on Warrell Dane's Praises to the War Machine, which Peter Witchers also did guitars on and produced it, I
Yeah, I
think.
believe so. Yeah.
Uh, just 2 years earlier. I was just looking that up, and apparently Dirk Verburen did the drums on that
Again,
one.
Dirk
Oh, hell
Verburen,
yeah.
not even a mid-price steakhouse, just whatever, whatever, whatever Chinese food places in town.
Whatever crappy buffet you can get him into.
You gotta know you can eat buffet. Like I'll play drums for you.
Do it for a 3 pack of quick trip chicken
Yeah.
tenders. But those are good. So I'm not knocking the tendies.
Oh, get that
Those
in
things are
a
awesome.
bottle of MD 2020, and he's good. So, John, do you have any thoughts about this one?
Oh man, I may have already said it when I was interrupting Dave, but this is a sweet little bop. And this one in particular kept getting stuck in my head over the past couple of weeks as I was listening to this album a bunch. And I'd be like, man, what song is that? It's just like in my head, but like in a good way. You know, sometimes something stuck in your head.
hmm
It's like, oh my God, get this out of there. But no, this one just kept coming back. And I was like, oh man, I like this one a lot. The guitars kind of noodling around the whole time, which is great.
hmm
It's got kind of soothing vocals and some cool solos. And then I specifically wrote down the part from about 343 to 358 is rad. There's some really cool drums in there, some soaring layered vocals.
I let it drown in the afterglow. Blood rushing straight through the
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree. This one, it sticks with you. It's interesting. It's not the most metal or soil work sounding songs. Um, but it's interesting. I like the idea of it, and the chorus is catchy in kind of an unexpected way. So, he's
hmm
doing something, and I don't love it, but it's again, yeah, what John said, it's been kind of in my head, and I've been thinking about it. So they're doing something right. Um, which brings us to the end of the album. Track 10, Enter Dog of Pavlov. And Brother John, take us home with this one.
Hell yeah. Well, there is a
Oh, we'll
bonus
do
track that
that.
we should
We'll
probably
do
talk
that. But this
about.
is the end of the
Okay.
real album.
Whew. All right. Well, this, so there's sort of an epic 2 minute intro to this one. And I was reading an interview that Peter Witchers had with somebody, and he said that that was inspired by the Alice in Chains song "Check My Brain," that has a lot of kind of bluesy bends in it. And he was saying that those kind of bluesy elements, he was also heavily inspired by Dimebag Darrell, who had a lot of that in his music. And really, he was one of the main inspirations why Peter Witchers even started playing metal in the first place. But so, anyways, that I don't know, that 2 minute first 2 minutes has a lot of cool, kind of bluesy, bendy guitar stuff that was pretty cool. And then that sort of stops. And then there's another 30-second intro that's a little bit different before the vocals come in. So we're like 2.5 minutes in before the vocals even start. Um, But yeah, I like this one a lot. I thought it was pretty good. Um, and last time I had opined about the meaning of one of the songs and if it could be about struggling with potentially Christian guilt that comes with cranking off. In this song, he says, "Don't ever choke it again" a bunch of times. I mean, is that another reference to this same issue? Is this maybe it's not drug addiction that he's struggling with?
I mean, the first line is, "Here I am, the prodigal son." So all the evidence you need to know that they are lapsed evangelicals.
Yeah, could be, but like all jokes aside, this one I would say another bop. Has some pretty fast, riffy goodness in it, and overall, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first 2 minutes is just Peter Witcher's noodling around because he can. He's like, "This is my album. I'm just gonna fucking noodle for a while." This there's some good speedstered vocal builds, like the ooh, that he does, especially like right at the end at the 4:30. I think when the vocals start, he does it, and then he does it at the end. And that's I always like to see those. I don't think it's the best closing song they've ever done, but it gets the job done. It's it's fine. It's a decent Soilwork song. Brother Dave, take us home with this one.
I'd say it's a good Soilwork song, in fact, but not the best Soilwork song. And I do agree that it's an interesting choice as the closer. It's one of their more ambitiously weird songs. Uh, like the whole proggy intro. Um, I mean, John saying he was inspired by blues. I hear a lot of like prog in there, which no one's right. It's just all Peter Witchers being Peter Witchers, and it's also in another part that I think is in a major key, so stands out. Um, and then at the end, the last half of it, he does a whole bunch of stuff with weird time signatures, but he does it in such a way that I didn't even notice it was weird time signatures until like the my 10th listen to it or something. It was like today or yesterday that I was listening to it and being like, wait, that's a little weird. There's some nice use of 7/8 at 253, and then kind of at 312 through kind of going back and forth throughout the end of the song. He's in 5/4. But he does it so well that it flows really well. Um, I like this song a lot. He's trying new stuff, and I think that is one of the things that keeps Soilwork feeling fresh, is that it still feels like Soilwork, but there's enough new stuff to keep me interested. The last thing that I would like to draw attention to is just one more comment from our friends over at songmeanings.com. Um, we don't have to, I mean, the song is called Enter Dog of Pavlov. And I mean, this comment by Con19 really says it all. Google Pavlov's dog. Dot, dot, dot.
Ooh, and on that cryptic message, let's go to the bonus track, Sweet Demise. And Brother John, you've been champing at the bit to talk about this one, so go right ahead.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to make sure we didn't forget it. But I mean, so
It's
this
obviously your
one,
favorite song on the
Yeah, no,
album.
defend it.
well,
7 out of
so
6.
the more times I listen to it, I think I do like it. But my initial thoughts were it has a rad little intro till about 46 seconds. Then it goes into kind of a weak intro verse. After that, it goes hard again for the chorus. Then it slows down again. And so it's kind of like playing you hot and cold. It's not, I wasn't really sure that I liked the flow of the song. But, it's a Soilwork song. So I've definitely heard worse songs. It's obviously in the top 50 to 75% of all songs ever, just by virtue of the fact that it's Soilwork. So I think, like it. the more I listened to it, the more I liked it, which is maybe a running theme for me because some of these ones it's like, I don't know. But then I just keep listening. It's like, okay, I get it. I like it. And so, you know, great closer for the extended album.
Dave.
That's all I
Disagree with
got.
you there. Um, I absolutely see why they cut this one. This song is a hot mess. It start
Well, that was kind of my initial impression. But the more you listen to this deluxe
I mean,
edition bonus track,
it does
yeah.
start off with a cool driving intro, and I'm thinking, yeah, this could be good. And then it drops in just the sleepiest verse that I've ever heard from Soilwork. I just want to fall asleep right away when
Yeah,
he
sleepy
starts
is
it there.
probably yes. I can feel how it's calling me. I can feel how it hurts. Like the words to a
You
silent
remember how we
sleep.
used
And
to
at
have
that
the
point, everyone is asleep.
remember how we used to have the joke about Slipknot singer not being able to actually catch his breath?
Oh, yeah. There's a early like a Napster downloaded live version of some Slipknot show, and he was constantly just out of breath, like like trying to catch his breath, and you could totally hear it.
And we just took it to the
Oh yeah.
extreme and said he'd like lie down on stage and just take a quick snooze right in the middle of the song. That's what this song does. And then
But not because they're going so hard, it's just because they're going
just
so weak.
yeah, because he's already tired. This is the one he takes a nap during. And there's like the verse and then the pre-chorus, and then there's like maybe another verse. I felt like there were five unique vocal parts. Nothing really got repeated. It was just like they threw a whole bunch of stuff, part A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it was over. Like it didn't even feel like a song composition. Just they put a bunch of riffs all in a row. I did not like this one at all.
Uh, well, no, I feel like an idiot because I had written this is well, I said this was maybe the first bonus track where I could see it being on the actual album. Um,
You should
but
feel
then I wrote,
ashamed.
I probably should, but I wrote, not great, not terrible. 3.6 Rontgen.
Nice.
So I don't know. It was fine. Whatever. Yeah. And with that, stunning and strong end, let's turn to our resident ranking expert, Brother John.
All right, boys. Well, our final segment is called Bop or Flop, where we decide, does the album slap or is it crap? We have now honed a patented six-tier ranking system going from six all the way down to one. We have the bops, a perfect six, unassailable. This is Metal Incarnate. We have a five. I like to stand on that thing. An album we could easily listen to on repeat. A four, or that's doable. It's a very solid album, worth listening to. And there's the flops. A three, it lacks zazz. Nothing special, somewhat forgettable. A two is called that because it's a number two. It's just straight crap. And a one, it belongs in a garbage can. This album is a disappointment to its father and the listener. So I will kick this off. My final thoughts are this for me, I feel like was a bit underrated initially. And maybe it's just because I hadn't really listened to it in a long time. Because I think I did give it a lot of plays when it first came out. But um, going back, I kind of said this when I was talking about the bonus track. I might be a little bit of a broken record, but the more times I listened to it, the more I liked it. And there's a lot of good stuff on this one. The production and the mixing is on point. It sounds really good. I had no complaints about the overall sound. Lots of good layers of sound also, and just sounded really full. So no complaints with the audio. The songs I thought were pretty catchy, groove laden, lots of awesome guitar riffs and solos, a lot of noodly guitar, even where they weren't doing solos. And drums are yet again on point and showcased a little bit more than the last album. I think I said this before, maybe, but like Dirk Verbeuren, doing more of the stuff, maybe like what he was doing on Stabbing the Drama, but recorded much better. So the drums just sound really good in the mix. Overall, I'd like to stand on this thing. I give it a solid 5.
I'm gonna agree with everything you said. I don't really have a whole lot to add to that. It's just the production's great, the guitar work is great, the drum work is great. Um, I I was sleeping on this album, and listening to this one was a joy this week. I This is a great album. I think it is not a perfect six, only because um, the what would knock it up there would have been slightly catchier vocal lines. Um, right now, I feel like the vocal hooks, maybe half the songs have pretty solid vocal hooks for their choruses, but I don't really remember any of the verses. And with like Natural Born Chaos, which is a perfect six for me. I I know all about that album, start to finish, lyrically even. Um, so I wonder if that's maybe a thing that would come with time if I continue to give this more listens. But right now it's sitting at a 5.5 for me. I'm gonna break my streak of not giving out fractions or decimals, however you want to say it. Uh, it is very close to being perfect.
Interesting. This is not an album I'd listen to at all before doing this podcast when we did our first chronological listen all the way through. So, I mean, this was a treat for me to really discover this album. I think it is a vast improvement over Sworn to a Great Divide. It has a couple really driving standout tracks right at the beginning. Um, and it's a fairly consistent album all the way through. Yeah, there's one real snoozer on there, but overall, the tracks are well done. That said, I don't think there's as many musical moments that stand out to me. And I think that is partly like a lot of the vocals really don't. I had mentioned, the choruses don't really pop in the way they had previously. I don't recall a single synth on this album, and I mean, those are my two things, vocals and synths.
Yeah, they were
Negative
hidden.
3 points.
Right. So it's it's a consistently decent album. It never quite reaches any of the highs that I'm really looking for, and I think that's maybe a pitfall of when kind of one person has more or less absolute creative control over an album. Um, so I think it's lacking something. But that said, I listen to this a lot and I will continue to listen to it. So I'm going to give this a solid 4. This is that's doable. Well, soil mates, that's all for this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode where we will discuss Soilwork's ambitious 2013 double album, The Living Infinite. Until then, may the metal be with you.
And also
And
with you.
also with you.